One of the most interesting people I've ever read about is a man named Surowardi. And he lived around 1100, and he lived for 38 years. He was a brilliant man. He wrote in medical texts, and he was a philosopher. And one of the aspects of his philosophical training that I find the most interesting is that he understood that the goal of the philosopher is to do the scholastic work, to do the intellectual work, and then to have an experience, to come into gnosis. So he understood a mystic understanding of the world around, his own world, the things that he learned, the things that he saw, the experiences that he had. He was able to understand very clearly that the mystical conclusion, the Gnostic conclusion of what he was working on was the most important. In other words, he was interested in having a mystic experience. And that was what he thought was the goal of philosophy. How different than today, where the goal of philosophers is to make sure you have no mystical experience and that you are in a rational bias for most of your life. But you can see the animosity that exists. And it certainly existed in his life, because when he was 38 years old, the theocratic leaders of his community decided that he was just too brilliant, too inspiring, too incredible, too innovative, too much of a man of light, that they decided to murder him. And they did it with absolute certainty, and they made sure that he was not even considered a martyr. So he died without being a martyr. And of all people, he was certainly a man who was martyred. And how true it is that we look today that there are those who would cut our span short because they don't like what we say or what we think or the experiences that we have. And so we become heterodox. That means we are no longer orthodox. And you've gone off the feudal plot. You've gone off. And so you're going to face tremendous adversity in that. You might even die. I think I will. Of course, I'm old, so it could happen any second. But the point is that Surowardi in 1100s understood very well that the goal of this world is to begin to have commerce with and understand and experience the other world, the phenomenal world, to have a epiphany, an experience. And that experience so frightens those around that they'll skewer you and hang you or push you off a cliff or whatever it is. So it's important to kind of realize that there's a risk here in your endeavoring to free yourself from the constraints of our larger culture, our society, that it's a dangerous business. And so I would suggest to you that you help yourself by forming groups around yourself, people around you who are sympathetic to what you do and you are sympathetic to their work. Now, I'm not suggesting that you join a brigade to defend your neighborhood. But, well, although that might be absolutely necessary at some point. But what I'm saying is that the relationships of cooperation and sympathy are really important. And to allow another individual to begin their journey, their experiment into taking their philosophy of life, how they see the world, and turning that into a mystic experience, a knowing, a gnosis. And I think that's the goal of my life. Well, I don't think, I know. Because the experiences that I've had have told me that that's the sure thing. That's the stuff that's the best. That's the elixir of life. Those experiences that I've had are ones that I go back to every single time. So I'm saying then, have some experiences. Engage yourself with the idea that you can have an epiphany, an experience of the phenomenal world. Move through these thin spaces that are around us and begin to slip into those little places, those little tidal pools of spirit where we get a connection. I call it angel connections, angel work. They don't embody themselves, but they are certainly here. And that hearing and that being here is really powerful stuff. So I urge you to do your work around these things. This is where the work is that's the best. Joining in a group and, giving them some money and having them do what they got to do. Might be a great building or a powerful speaker. But in the end, it's you. It's you and your family, your kith, your kin, who will be the ones who will benefit from your intrepid journey to your own experience, to your own epiphany. I can't think of anything more powerful to pass on. That these kinds of events in humankind are powerful and they are all pervasive and they occur all the time. Look at our Bible, the Christian Bible. The amount of interactions with angels and supernatural events and the cataclysms of life on earth, are testimony to the work we have to do as individuals. Now, sometimes we do need a little bit of a community or a place to reside in order to have this experience. So think about the Essene community on the Dead Sea. They were about forming a really solid, powerful, strong community, not for the sake of the community, but for the restoration of the first temple. That is the life of Yeshua. In every way that I can read it, it was for the restoration of the first temple, for the freeing of the people of Israel to be able to attend temple. And it was a rejection of the second temple. Yeshua, for everything I can read, wanted to go back to reconstruct the first temple. He did not want the temple that was in Jerusalem to be the temple of his people. That was not the gateway to the divine hierarchy. That was not where you made the move. He knew that. His brother James knew that. They all knew that. Peter was whacking off people's ears with a sword. Think about that. Peter had a sword. He was ready to do battle. And there was a battle. And 60,000 Roman legionnaires descended on Jerusalem. 60,000 legionnaires. That was an unstoppable force in those days. And even today, probably not much would hold that force back. So the same people, the same mentality that martyred Surowardi, martyred Yeshua. and they will stop at nothing. They will martyr you. They won't even give you a plaque that said, here lies a martyr. They are going to pass you by, and it's up to us to do the work to pass on our revelation and our epiphany to our children and to those around us who are willing to join us in sympathy and our connection with the divine hierarchy. To find a thin space, to enter into the phenomenal world. I think that's where I want to go. Amen.